And at a time when Washington is pushing for peace, the war in Ukraine is only getting deadlier. Both Moscow and Kiev are accusing each other of breaking truce and targeting civilian areas. While Ukraine targeted Russian forces in Kursk, the port city of Odessa came under massive Russian attack. Swarm of drones rained down on Odessa hours after the NATO chief left the city, along with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Our next report taking a closer look at the present situation and the way things stand.
This is Kherson, where one after the other, 6 explosions reduced entire buildings to rubble. Located near the Black Sea, the city is facing relentless Russian air and artillery strikes.
We have one room that has no windows, so we ran there and thank God we are alive.
Russian drones also struck Odessa, another city near the Black Sea. The images of destruction tell the tale of the carnage. The latest attack came hours after NATO chief Mark Rutte and Ukrainian President Zelensky visited wounded Ukrainian soldiers in an Odessa hospital. Ukraine says Russia carried out 109 airstrikes on Ukrainian military positions and settlements, dropping 177 guided air bombs and deploying over 2,000 kamikaze drones. The Russian attacks surged since Sunday when Russia targeted Sumy. This is the CCTV footage from a grocery shop in the Ukrainian city, when back-to-back missile strikes killed over 30 people and injured over 100 others. Moscow claims its Iskander missiles struck a meeting of Ukrainian military commanders, killing 60 Ukrainian soldiers. Russia accuses Ukraine of using civilians as human shields. Kyiv forces hit Russia's Kursk region that borders Ukraine with dozens of drones. Moscow says over 100 drones were downed. Reports say Ukrainian forces targeted the Russian brigade behind the deadly missile attack on Sumy. Heavy fighting continues near Sudzha, where Russian airborne units attempt to breach defenses. Ukrainian forces repelled 8 assaults in a single day, leveraging drone strikes and artillery to blunt advances. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
The United States is preparing to shrink its military footprint in Syria, paving the way for Turkey to potentially step up its influence over Syrian security. And this strategic move marks a possible reduction of U.S. forces by nearly half as Washington starts consolidating its presence in the region. According to reports by Reuters and Israeli media, American defense officials have already tipped off their Israeli counterparts about this upcoming troop reduction. This troop reduction may start as soon as within the next 2 months. And that has sent alarm bells ringing in Jerusalem. Israel reportedly fears the vacuum created by a thinning American presence. It will embolden Ankara to actually expand its reach into Syria, is what is feared. Currently, around 2,000 American soldiers are stationed across northeastern Syria and primarily stationed there to support Kurdish-led forces in preventing the Islamic State from making a comeback. But with consolidation plans underway, that number could soon fall to around 1,000. And there are also doubts about such a steep reduction, reportedly, especially at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is tightening its military grip across the region. B-2 bombers, US warships, advanced air defense systems have all been deployed in recent weeks as part of a wider show of strength in West Asia against the Houthis and Iran. And these developments coming at a time when the Pentagon is currently reviewing its global troop deployment under the direction of the US Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth. Last month itself, a secret Pentagon memo revealed that the US military is being realigned to counter a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan while reducing its presence in other global hotspots. Earlier this month, the Israeli Prime Minister reportedly lobbied hard against a proposed arms deal that would supply Turkey with F-35 fighter jets. Netanyahu even raised these concerns directly with Trump during their recent White House meeting, publicly stating that he does not want Syria turning into a launch pad for attacks on Israeli soil. Since November, in fact, the Israeli military has launched several cross-border airstrikes and targeted operations aimed at preventing HTS-led Syrian troops and potentially Turkish forces from establishing any long-term base of operations near Israeli territory. HTS, remember, came to power after overthrowing Bashar al-Assad. Israel has also accused Ankara of turning Syria into a de facto Turkish protectorate. The security vacuum in Syria has already led to major changes. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces recently inked a deal with the Damascus government to integrate their government bodies and security forces with the central government. And that agreement was reportedly brokered with US approval. During his first term, Trump vowed to pull out all American troops from Syria, though that was never fully realized. And now history seems to be repeating itself. Once again, Israel is pushing back. Israel argues that every inch the US retreats gives Turkey more room to assert control. Whether the US withdraws its troops or alters its plan remains to be seen. The decision could very well determine who calls the shots in post-Assad Syria, whether that's Washington, Ankara, or someone else entirely. Who is a woman, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a wife, a presence that nurtures and sustains, builds homes, breaks glass ceilings? But in a world reshaped by identity politics and social flux, even this timeless question has become a battleground in a way. Now, Britain's highest court has spoken out in a landmark ruling that settles years of legal ambiguity. These are the images of women's rights activists celebrating the verdict outside UK Supreme Court in London.
Today, the judges have said what we always believed to be the case, that women are protected by their biological sex, that sex is real, and that women can now feel safe that services and spaces designated for women are for women, and we are enormously grateful to the Supreme Court for this ruling.
The UK Supreme Court has declared that for the purpose of law, the definition of a woman is rooted in biological sex, not gender identity. The judgment upholds that the concept of sex is binary and has significant implications for legislation, policy making, and social discourse. The case stemmed from a challenge to the Gender Representation on Public Boards Scotland Act that sought to redefine woman to include trans women for the purposes of increasing gender diversity. The court struck that down, ruling that sex in law means biological sex, as recorded at birth or changed through recognized medical transition, not based on self-declaration.
The terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not.
In fact, let's also tell you that in terms of the reactions, we are getting you those reactions in just a bit. The judges, however, cautioned this should not be seen as a political victory for any side in the increasingly polarized culture war. Some trans activists feel the judgment suggests there will be times when trans people can be excluded from both men's and women's spaces and services.
Well, yes, this is a huge area for workplace tension. The reality is that the trans community do feel underrepresented, which was really what this case was about, and also do feel excluded and not included in the workplace. So they will very much see this judgment as wounding them and will view it as anti-protectionist.
The ruling brings some clarity in the UK to a contentious issue that has also roiled politics in other parts of the world, as women, parents, LGBTQ+ groups, lawmakers and athletes have debated gender identity rights. As the US-China trade battle heats up, let's tell you about a crucial weapon that China is using against America. We are talking about rare earths. China has announced restrictions on export of 7 rare earth elements. First, what exactly are rare earths? Rare earth metals are a prized commodity used in various technologies, including smartphones, electric vehicles, electronic displays, wind turbines, so on. The thing is, they are crucial for technology that will end up playing a very important role in the future as well. They are extremely important for the tech race, and China is well aware of that. And its dominance of the rare earth supply chain is something that Beijing could use as a weapon. And the extent of dominance is huge, by the way. Do you know how much of the global mined rare earth production China accounts for? As per the International Energy Agency, that figure stands at 61%. And as far as control over the processing stage is concerned, it's 92% of the global output. Do you know what Xi Jinping called rare earths back in the year 2019? A vital strategic resource. And they are indeed. And given the reliance that America and other countries have on China for these metals, China could use this a lot more to its advantage. And where does the US stand as far as rare earths are concerned? While America's dependence on rare earth imports from China has come down over the years, it's still a long way to go. There are concerted efforts being made to have its own domestic rare earth supply chain, but the road ahead is far too long. Also, extraction and processing is not easy. It's also expensive. On Tuesday, US President Donald Trump ordered a probe into potential new tariffs on all US critical minerals imports. It's a major escalation in his dispute with global trade partners and an attempt to pressure the industry leader China. Trump said in the order that US dependence on mineral imports raises the potential for risks to national security, defense readiness, price stability, and economic prosperity and resilience, quote unquote. And in response, China's foreign ministry has said on Wednesday that artificial intelligence in the supply chain violates the laws of the market economy and international trade rules. The Commerce Secretary has been asked to report his findings to the President within 180 days, including on whether to impose tariffs. And were the US President to then impose a tariff on a country's critical minerals, the rate would supersede the reciprocal tariffs that Trump imposed early this month, according to the White House. All this at a time when the trade war between America and China is only intensifying. China now reportedly faces up to 245% tariff on imports to the US. Where are things headed between the world's two biggest economies? A lot depends on the answer to that question.